Hi everyone, welcome to WealthAbility Live. My name is Hannah. I help you to discover your ability to create wealth. So today is a very special episode. We are talking about Brexit. So if you're watching me live, be free to say hi and comment and share this video out. And if you're watching replay, also welcome all the replay viewers. So today we have a special guest, and he's one of my fellow accountants but he's based in Belgium. And today we are talking about Brexit. So it is actually a very interesting day. So in the meantime, we just wait for a couple of minutes for him.
Europe is fine. I hope that UK is fine too. We'll discuss. That they had a meeting today. It was an important meeting for the first time in the Brexit events. There was a first meeting in London today between the UK and EU negotiators.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, it happened to be like today we have in London, there's a Brexit meeting. And yes, it's always like the world has kept changing and we never know what will be the consequence. So yes, I just mentioned to our audience, even if they're watching replay. So we met in London before, and you talk a little bit about Brexit and also how you help businesses. So first of all, just introduce yourself a little bit, and also like your firm. I know you're based in Belgium. Just to tell us a little bit more about yourself and your firm.
Okay, thank you, Anna. So, hi again from Brussels, the capital city of Europe, European Union. My name is Charles Markowicz. I'm an accountant in Brussels, Belgium. I founded my company kind of 23 years ago. Its name is Costmasters. We are a small team of 5 people, and we serve SMEs, mainly Belgian ones or subsidiaries of foreign companies, mainly American or Asian companies. That's it. We focus on tax, and we try to help our clients to reach their professional and personal objectives.
Okay, that's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome because, we help businesses reach their personal and professional objectives, and money is a very important part of it. And a lot of people, we build a business because we want to create some legacy. But of course, we all need to adapt to the change. So, Charles, I know you had experience, like your firm had experience before, like helping Asian and American companies with their EU businesses. So, perhaps you can we can start from there a little bit, and then what have made you decide as well helping UK businesses when the time they exit the EU?
Well, we already helped some foreign companies in different instances, and let me give you two of them. One of them, maybe the CE mark regulation. CE mark you may have seen on different objects that you purchase in any shops that there is a CE mark, which proves that the product complies to a certain specific quality norm, which is very complex for non-European companies. So we have helped non-European companies in understanding that the regulation that applies to them, and try to beneficiate from this certification to be able to sell into the European market. This is one example. Another example is an international group that is their main European entity in London, and they purchased a number of subsidiaries in Switzerland, in France, in Belgium, in a number of countries. And of course, they wanted some European administrative and financial integration. And we were in touch with their financial director, and he hired us to bring our experience or knowledge about management control, common common harmonization of the accounts, etc. And we help building a group reporting, and then we passed our knowledge to their financial guys so that they could do it without us. And a third example, I don't have any practical case so far, but you may have heard of the GDPR, which is the data privacy regulation. And this is something we are focusing on, and we hope to help European and eventually non-European, which means UK companies, in a few months' time, once the GDPR will be applied, will be mandatory in May 2018. This is kind of example of what we do.
Okay, that's awesome. So as we know, like Asian companies or non-EU companies, it's very obvious that there will be barriers when they have like dealings with European country when they don't have that sort of representative. So when the UK eventually exit in the EU, so what do you think, what can be the consequence if these companies, like UK companies, when they have the dealing with EU, if they don't take any action, what can be the consequences?
Well, they're going to lose a number of hair if they don't prepare. And I know you serve many doctors, so maybe it will be good for the doctors, but it will be very dramatic for some of the companies. We don't know what the post-Brexit era will be. Because there are a number of scenarios, and you know they're discussing today, but in fact the real discussions about the post-Brexit era will start in April. If the negotiations will last as long as it did between Europe and Canada, it's going to be 7 years. Who knows? 7 years to discuss, to come to an agreement. Who knows what will happen? But in the meantime, the companies that won't be prepared will face the barriers. Imagine all the trucks that go on a channel and they come to UK or they come to Europe. Now, their integration, I mean, they can enter the countries quite easily. But if they don't have a specific agreement, if there is no rules, if there are no rules between France, Germany, Belgium, and the UK, you'll see so long queues at the entrance of the countries that it's going to cost the companies a lot of money. The transportation associations already understand that if there is no future agreement between UK and Europe, the trucks queues will be very long. And to each transportation company, when a truck is blocked at the frontier of the country, that represents costs. So imagine a truck that will come from London to Brussels, then to Paris, then to Germany, then to Spain. If they have to pass the borders every time and file all the papers, it's going to be terrible. So my recommendation is be prepared in advance. Think of what could happen. Think to your business. What could happen? Be prepared. Eventually, have a subsidiary somewhere. Imagine that now UK and Europe form one entity, one single market. If there won't be any agreement, UK companies will face 27 different countries, and eventually 29, because in 2025, 2 new countries might join the European Union. So be prepared. Prepare yourself. Think.
Yeah, absolutely. So I suppose at this stage, because there's several scenarios, it's always good to be aware of what can happen. And even if there's nothing need to be done, and you need to be aware what's the cost, because it's going to cost more in time and also money at some point.
Yes. Absolutely, you're totally right. But there are things to be done. At least you need to think to what could happen. You need to prepare some scenarios. You need to be in touch with your trade association. You need to think to what could happen if you create a subsidiary in Europe or in the UK. Think What could happen if it's the hard Brexit that will gain, which we don't think, or if we'll live with a soft Brexit scenario? It's going to be totally different for the companies. The economic consequences will be totally different. I just read that the Ministry of Brexit, I don't know its exact name in the UK, but they just ordered a study on the consequences of the Brexit decision according to 3 of the 7 most common scenarios.
Yeah.
So if there won't be any agreement, the UK might lose 15% of their growth, of their economic wealth within 10 or 12 years. If it's going to be a softer Brexit, a softer agreement, then the UK would only lose 2 or 3%. And there are some other scenarios that tell that the UK economy might lose 5%. So if you were a UK business, you want to be prepared for that. You want to cope with the situation. You want to have your diagnosis, solutions.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, be prepared. And also, you earlier mentioned one of the solutions, one of the things that can be done is have some sort of subsidiaries in one of the countries. So would that be like an effective solution? And does that mean that you have one subsidiary in one of the countries that will sort of even out, like minimize, help mitigate the consequence?
Well, I think a good solution might effectively be to have one subsidiary in the European Union, as you may have one in Asia, you may have one in Africa, you may have one in North America, and instead of having one general subsidiary in each of the African or Asian countries, you may have one bridge company, which is going to be your continental center, and from that point you operate in all the different countries. So I think it's good to study where you could have an entity, a branch or a subsidiary in a country which is not too expensive, where eventually people understand your language. It's not going to be in France for the UK people, because the French people usually don't speak very well English. They have their own accent from Paris, so sometimes you don't understand. Well, sometimes you don't understand the French. So it might be interesting to think that should a worse scenario happen, or should the negotiations last very long, maybe it's good to establish a cheap subsidiary where you can export your goods, your services, and from that point grow your business. This is what already happens. We have one UK client which is going to. These guys are consultants, very growing company, and they will now start a subsidiary in Belgium, and they will operate throughout Europe from Brussels. These are UK and London-based consultants.
Okay, that's brilliant. So you mentioned having one subsidiary in the continent, and then you are able to get access to the single market in that circumstances. So of course, I think you mentioned a little bit about setting up in Belgium. Is there any particular benefits of setting up in Belgium as opposed to other countries?
Well, I can again speak in French if you want, but you want to understand. I think Belgium has some advantage. I mean, it's not the only country that has advantages, but it's close to the UK. We have Eurostar. You can be there from London to Brussels within 1 hour by plane, 2 hours train. So it's close. People speak English. The cost of life is lower than in the UK, and especially in London. Real estate, if you have to rent an office or an apartment or a house for your staff members, real estate is really cheaper than in Paris or London or even Amsterdam. And also we are close to the European Commission. So if for any reason you need to lobby to the European Commission or you need to be close to a number of administrations, then it's a small city with a number of advantages. But of course, other cities have advantages too.
Yeah. So basically, it's like geographically, it's close to UK, and also economically, it's like it's a relatively like cheap place. Well, not say cheap, but it's fair.
Cheap.
Yeah, cheap. Yeah, cheap. And of course, like for businesses, if they want to look out for like have a cost-effective solution, that can be a good option.
Yeah, I mean, I have a UK consultant, you know him. When he has to come to Brussels, it takes him 2 hours from London. He comes one day, I mean, he sleeps in Brussels. We have our meeting at 5 p.m. the following day. He takes the high-speed train to Paris, where he has other meetings. Then he comes back to Amsterdam or to Italy, and that's very convenient. It's very easy.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then, but if you come quite permanently or more often, then you can have your European Center close to the European Commission or close to the airport or close to a Eurostar station, and it's very easy. But also a lot of people here speak English, which is a really good advantage for UK companies. Again,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, of course. Like if you do have something set up in European country and you need to comply with whatever the regulation is there and be able to understand what's the implication, then that's very important for the businesses. So yeah, do you have any other comments?
In many circumstances, when you comply to a law in a country, it's not always the case, but the European Union laws are so important that if you comply to a European law, most probably, I'm sorry, you will comply to many local laws too. So it's going to be easier if you have one foot in the European Union to spread and to grow into different countries, even though languages are different, and you still have to respect all laws, but it's going to be far more easy.
Yeah. Okay, so that's good. So that is very important that people, having the professional help, that is like you speak English, and then that's important that to help them to understand all these things. By the way, like, if you do need any help, say if you're watching me live or watching replay, if you do want like understand more and want to have a conversation with Charles, the detail is also in the description, and be free to click on the link, and then you are able to reach out for him. Okay, so of course we talk about the cost, about the benefits of setting up a subsidiary in Belgium. Early on, we also had a little conversation about the pound and euro currency, the change. So you were saying there's something interesting about it. So just a little bit, tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, we have seen the exchange rate between the UK pound and different countries, almost all countries of the world, changing the last weeks. After your decision to leave the European Union, the UK pound went down. it went down to many currencies. And the last week, the UK pound went up, kind of 2 weeks ago. The rate today, the exchange rate between the UK pound and euro is 1.13. Last week it was 1.15, and a few months ago it was 1.30. Why is that? Because people acknowledge the fact that there will be, there was an agreement on December 7 for the first stage of the separation, and there will probably an agreement, no one knows. But now people were afraid of the UK pound just after Brexit, so the UK pound went down, and now they think that it's going to be probably a soft Brexit that will regulate the relationships between UK and Europe. And if it's going to be a soft Brexit, then the UK economy will be less punished than if it's going to be it will less suffer. It's not a question of punishment, but the UK economy will be less affected than if it's going to be a hard Brexit. UK pound is stronger. I mean, its evolution is stronger to the US dollar than to the euro, because nowadays the US dollar is really weak according to most currencies. So it's quite interesting to see that the UK pound is getting stronger, and that the Brexit consequences so far are not as terrible as one could have thought. It doesn't mean that it's a good thing. It just means that it's not as terrible as it could have been.
Yeah. Okay, that's very interesting. Yeah, because the currency change, if you do have dealings in the different country, that change also, you need to consider what could be the cause as well, if there's a currency change. So of course, as you said, it's not as terrible. The consequence of Brexit is not as terrible as people thought. So apart from we talk about
excuse me, Hannah, precision on what you say. I mean, economics are difficult to analyze. And for example, because the UK pound was weaker, the internal demand, the internal economy was weaker in UK. But the opposed consequence is that the industry is doing well, because your exports are good, because the UK pound was weak. Now that in the last weeks the UK pound has been reinforced, no one knows what will happen, and that's one of the question marks for the future. But so far you have different opposed consequences of the weaker pound. Sorry for interrupting you.
That's okay. So that's a purpose of this discussion. So be free to share anything that's matter to the businesses. Okay. So as we just have as our discussion, because there will be different possibilities, and the consequences can be different. But why now it is it is a time to react to the act to the uncertainty. Why now is important? What business can do to be prepared for whatever comes?
Well, it's always important to be prepared, because it's always better to prepare for a reality than to face your consequences and not to have time to act. So I would say, of course, no one knows what will happen, but try to diagnose what the consequences of a hard Brexit could be on your business. Understand the possible potential consequences. Discuss with someone about how you could cope with the Brexit consequences. Would a branch, an entity, be a solution for you? How much is it going to cost? Do you have to do that in advance? What will it bring to you? Can you wait 6 months? Is it better to follow that on a regular basis, or to create something Loch Monster now? So be prepared, have your diagnosis, and have an action plan, whatever it's going to be. Have your action plan ready.
Yeah, that's very important, having the action plan ready. And also, as we know, your firm based in Belgium has experience in already helping the non-EU companies with their dealings with the EU. So if people want to know more about how you help UK companies or help with all these things, or finding out more details, what would be the best way to reach out to you?
They write, they email, they contact, and they drop a note. Hey Charles, what do you think of? Can we have a free discussion? Of course, the first discussion is going to be free. We can chat. What is your business? What do you do? I mean, would you be affected by the Brexit? Do you export? What is your level of revenues? I mean, if you don't export, you don't have a lot of revenues. I mean, you don't need a subsidiary. So I'm going to tell them, hey, don't worry, sleep well, and that's it. If you're an exporter, maybe you prefer to prepare now and to have your action plan ready, and say that in 6 months' time, if we go towards a hard Brexit, you want to take action. If it's a soft Brexit, if there will be a general agreement and the UK will be in a kind of single market, then maybe you don't have anything to do. No one knows. But be prepared.
Yeah, be prepared.
Be prepared.
Okay, so yeah, be prepared. Okay, so I think the show, we were nearly wrapping up the conversation. So it's been a pleasure to having you on my show. Just before we get off, before we wrap up, what would be the one thing, absolutely one thing, if they do nothing else, what would be the one thing you think these companies should do?
The one thing?
Yeah.
Read and be aware of what is going on, not exactly in all details, but be aware, keep informed about what we've just discussed, how it is going to happen, what is going to happen, how it's going to evolve, and think of what the consequences might be. That's what I watch. Have keep watching what's happening. And eat some Belgian chocolate, of course.
That's a good advice. Thank you for that. Okay, so thank you very much, Charles.
So the idea is come to Brussels. The idea is come to Brussels, discuss with me, and go back to London with your Belgian chocolates.
Yeah, that's absolutely brilliant advice. Yeah. Okay, so thank you very much. And also, if you're watching live or watching replay, thank you for watching as well. And as always, if any further details about things in the EU or any Brexit scenarios or all these details, be free to reach out for Charles. His link and his profile is in the description. And also, as you also know that Charles is also part of my community, which is my tax deductible lifestyle tribe. And also, if you do want more help in tax or money or wealth growth in general, and make sure you do join the group. And not just you can access to my resources, but also can get access to our experts, including Charles.
Thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much. This is a Monday WealthAbility show, and thank you again, Charles, for coming.
My pleasure. And have a nice evening in the UK and all over the world.
Have a nice evening.
Okay, talk to you soon. Peace. Bye-bye.
Bye.